Thank you for tuning in to Spiritual Debriefing, a podcast sponsored by First Baptist Church Hiwassee, with tonight's hosts Daniel Meadows, Derek Fisher, Jed Harris, and Ray Taggart, and our special guest, Mike Taylor.
Welcome to Spiritual Debriefing. I am back. Daniel Meadows here with you. With me around the table tonight is...
Mike Taylor. Was here the first podcast, the premiere podcast, and excited to be back.
Good to have you, Mike. I'm Jed.
Hey, Jed.
Hey, Jed.
Hey.
Yeah, I'm Derek. I'm back.
And Derek
What's
is
up,
here.
Derek?
How's it going? And then, of course, Ray, I'm here as well, and we're working on some new equipment tonight, so if it sounds different or sounds weird, we're going to blame that.
There you go. Hey, and we are missing Randy. He is not with us tonight.
Yeah, he's got the wrestling.
He's
Wrestling.
got some wrestling to do or something like that. So,
Daughter's wrestling.
daughter's wrestling, yeah. How was your Christmas?
It's good.
What'd you do?
Went to North Carolina.
Drive, fly?
Drove.
Yeah.
It's a long
Like
drive.
a man.
How long?
Drove like a man.
How long of a drive is that nonstop?
18 hours.
Because you come home.
You
in
stopped,
18
right?
hours.
On the way there.
Well, on the way there, we stopped at my wife's uncle's house in Tennessee. Spent the night there and then continued on to North Carolina.
There you go.
But on the way back,
You drove
I
straight through.
drove straight through. I wanted to sleep in my own bed so bad.
Yeah.
We all did. But it was a good trip. Went out there to see my dad in North Carolina. Helped him build some fence for his cows. Had a couple of days where we didn't do anything. That was good.
Good
But
weather.
It was cold. Yeah, because you guys got the cold front
Yeah, that's right.
here, and then that went out to North Carolina, but it didn't get as cold over there like it did here.
It had been warmed up a bit by the time it got to you.
Yeah, it was like 30 degrees. It wasn't like
that was
zero.
It wasn't
like zero.
It wasn't zero.
Yeah. But it was a good trip. We had a great time.
Good.
What about you?
It was a good. We were supposed to host Christmas this year. Pipes busted Christmas Eve, so those plans changed. And in the middle of cleaning up from the pipes busting, got asked to preach the Christmas service.
Mm-hmm.
So that
I heard about that.
Yeah, that was in my 12 years of ministry. That's the second time I've ever preached a service for Christmas.
Oh, that's cool.
First time ever on Christmas Day itself. So that was
Nice.
kind of a neat experience. But it
Yeah.
was a good time.
Did you have
Good
fun?
time. Yeah. And then went down to Fayetteville to Taylor's parents' house.
All right. Excellent.
Yeah.
What'd
What'd you
Sorry
do,
I
Ray?
missed
Yeah,
that.
what about you, Ray?
What'd you do?
I laid in bed with about 101 degree fever.
That's right. Well, hey,
That's what I did.
we're glad you're better, though.
Yeah, I'm better now. Then, my daughter caught it after that, and then my wife caught it after that, and so she's still recovering. But, yeah, our Christmas through New Year's was spent holed up at home trying not to die.
So it was your fault.
Yeah, well, we blamed it on all the kids from the Christmas play, but,
Oh, yeah. There you go.
That's why we all been sick this
This year,
winter.
it just
Just
Keeps
going back and
rolling
forth.
around.
I don't, yeah,
yep, that
Not me.
nasty
Not
flu and that new Rona.
not Mike.
Not me.
That's good.
Yeah.
Mike, how was your Christmas?
Eventful.
Yeah.
Christmas morning, we took my wife to the emergency room where she was diagnosed with a mini stroke, and so we spent 3 days in the hospital. Fortunately, we already had family time. We already spent some time with the kids beforehand, so we did have our Christmas, but it was an experience. But we made it through.
She's doing better.
Yeah, she's doing okay. She's still doing some therapy, and we've got some new medicine that we're going on. So hopefully that'll all work out in the long run. Like I told her on the way to the emergency room when she was so upset, I said, look, God's in control. We don't have any control over this anyway, so we just have to kind of deal with it and just kind of go with it. And we know that if he's got a plan, we'll just follow that. So kind of comforted her, I think.
And she was here Sunday, so that was good.
Yep, she's
See
doing a
her.
little bit better.
Good. Jed, what about you? You have a good Christmas?
Had a good Christmas. We stayed here local and Christmas Eve hit my parents' house, and then we had ours at the house and went to other family members throughout the day and just visited and just had a good time.
There you
Was it
go.
on like a time schedule?
No,
Like 15 minutes here and then
no, it
10 minutes
wasn't.
there.
It was really good. It wasn't
That's
one of
good.
those where you had to be here and there and you had to eat 3 meals and then
Right.
one more and an hour. No, nothing
Yeah,
like
and you had to have grandma's pie at the end because she'd be
Yeah.
mad if you didn't.
yeah, it was
It-
all good.
Wasn't like Thanksgiving where you got to hit everybody's house in one day for.
No,
It's good.
Yeah.
We did the
Good time.
one thing that I said I despise doing and did a lock-in on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was a long night. It was fun. It was a good time.
yeah.
Yeah, we were
but
bummed
it
we
was-
couldn't come up for the
it
Nerf
was
fight.
long.
Randy texted us, said Nerf wars are starting. Get up here. And I
Oh,
was
it
like,
was-
kids are still sick. Wife's sick. Like, I don't want to bring that in here.
It was a good time.
I was telling Daniel I thought the Nerf 4s must have been really exciting because on my walk 6 miles from the church, I found a bunch of Nerf bullets all over the side of the road. I'm thinking, these kids really got out of hand.
Wow.
I mean, we went all out.
We did. It was a lot of
It
fun.
was a lot of fun. We played inside the church though. So
It was a good time. The kids had fun. The adults had fun.
yeah,
Came with all our tack equipment.
Yeah, we
We're all
did.
tactical.
it was a
Nice.
good, it was a
Night
good
vision
time.
goggles and everything. That's good.
Not quite.
Not that
quite.
extreme.
he did.
But we did
his
have a strobe
flashlight.
light.
Nice.
Yeah, we did.
Nice.
We might go night vision next time.
And I brought my old bulletproof vest and then put all the darts in there.
Nice.
It was
Loaded up.
It was a good time.
It was good.
It was fun.
Yeah, there was a lot of kids there.
There were.
Uh-huh.
I don't even off top of the head. I mean, it was in the teens, I think, something like
Yeah, I
that.
thought it was like 16 or something, wasn't it?
Something, yeah,
I don't remember.
something like that.
I don't remember. It don't really matter, but it was good.
But I mean, it was a good time. Good time.
Excellent.
A lot of pizza.
Yeah.
yeah, you had a lot of pizza.
A lot of pizza.
I only
yeah.
stayed till like 1, and I'm like, I can't.
Yeah, but then you came back up and cooked breakfast for us in the
Mhm.
morning, so that was nice. Jed came up,
Yep.
so that
Cooked
was
some
a good time.
breakfast.
Cooked some
That was good.
breakfast and
Excellent.
tried not to fall asleep. So.
Right. Oh, Wyatt was sleeping during service.
Yeah, next time it's never again on a Saturday night.
Yeah, you don't want to run right into a Sunday. Maybe
'Cause
do
I-
it Friday night so you get a
Well-
little recovery time.
Well,
Yeah.
always
Yeah,
always
Friday
have a
night.
rule. Luckily, it's going to be a few years before New Year's Eve falls on a Saturday night again, and-
Yeah.
But I always have a rule that if we do a lock-in on Saturday night, you have to stay for church on Sunday. Like, you can't just come for the fun. You've got to stay for the biblical teaching, too. And so when you start at 7:30 in the evening and they have to stay till 12:30 the next afternoon or
I don't think
whatever
they're
time
getting
we
any
got out.
biblical teaching.
I don't think.
I will tell you that right now. They are
I don't-
sleeping
I don't
in
think
the
it,
pews.
Yeah, I don't think it happens. So it's okay. Live and learn.
Yeah.
We'll adjust some things for next time.
Yeah, Wyatt's head was getting heavier and heavier on my shoulder. You could-
Taylor had the idea, and I kind of liked it. A good segue into what we're going to talk about was that each parent that has a student in the youth group has to do 4 hours per student at the next lock-in.
Make all the parents come.
Yeah.
You'll just have less kids.
You have less kids. I'm just going to tell you that.
Considering that I don't have any kids at all, I'll just stay home.
But you're the youth pastor.
I thought they're all your kids.
They are. They are all my kids. I adopt them in. So
I'm glad I'm an empty nester.
Jed's got 3, so that's
It's getting close. There's not going to be that many.
what after this year it'll be 2.
Be two.
So then just 8 hours is all he'd have to give.
Gotcha.
And then Lisa would have to do 8 hours as well. So, there you go.
I was lucky to do what I did.
Yeah. Hey, and it was much appreciated. Much appreciated.
If
So
you really truly knew how miserable I was.
What,
So-
you sick?
I guess.
Well, I went to the hospital the next night. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'd been fighting that for 3 days before. So, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I stayed with you all night,
So-
Daniel.
No, I
couldn't-
appreciate you.
I
Yeah.
couldn't do
I was
it.
going to.
I barely could do it. I did fine up until it's probably 5:36 in the morning was when I finally hit. And that's, I was doing everything I could to stay awake, cleaning and
Oh, you should have seen
putting
how
stuff
happy
up.
he was when I pulled
like,
in. He come running out the doors. Hey, here, I got coffee.
I was like, Jed's here. I got
Breakfast.
coffee. Hey, Jed, coffee. So,
Nice.
yeah. So one thing that's been on my mind lately, and y'all know the struggles that we've had of having kids, but I've often wondered. I know it from the youth pastor standpoint, but as a parent, talk to us about raising children. How do you raise children?
Well, I think what we're going to do on this podcast too is going to be like, this is going to be split up between like 4 parts, I believe. Because I think I would like to bring in parents that come from different aspects of life.
Mm-hmm.
Ones that are, like Mike that has all
Empty
his kids
nesters.
growing. Empty, yeah.
He's
And
got the
then-
most experience of all of us.
Oh yeah, he does. That's why we brought him. And then somebody that has kids now, teenagers, ones that have younger kids, and really break that down. I mean, we really got to break that down into different stages of childhood. Where, what do we do when we first have the child? When do we start that? Do we start doing this stuff between 1 and 5 or 1 and 8, and then you go to 9 to 12, and like my 2 kids now. I mean, I got a 17-year-old and he'd be 13 tomorrow. So
Man.
17-year-old daughter, and then Wyatt will be 13 tomorrow.
So 2 teens.
2 teens.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're in trouble.
Oh yeah. So that's why I wanted to do this too. We all did, because there's a lot of us that are dealing with teenagers right now, and we need all the help we can get.
Yep.
Because every child's different. Every
Absolutely.
parent's different.
Absolutely. Just real briefly, I have helped raise 10 children from different backgrounds, as a result of divorce, 8 children with one marriage, 2 with another. So blending together my biological children with my stepchildren, and how all that worked. We have a special needs child that we adopted. We have boys, we have girls, and there is definitely not an owner's manual. There's not a
No?
there's just not a we got our scriptures to be able to kind of fall back on, but sometimes they don't come readily available in your head when you're dealing with situations with your kids, because they come up with some pretty unique problems and situations that catch you off guard. And so I think that's kind of what Derek was talking about, that whole range of development for those children.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I think that's what, when they say that it takes a village to raise a child, they don't mean society as a whole. I think they really do mean the old sense of village, like as in what our churches are kind of for us nowadays, is that you do have to rely on the parents around you, the other people around you, for their various experiences, their various issues they've gone through, because you can pretty much guarantee that, yes, they're all different, but there's at least one person in your church who's probably had their child do the exact same thing you're going through.
Right.
You just got to talk about it and find them, because
Yep.
you're not going to be able to just intuitively know that's the person you need to talk to. But
Well, and not just their child, but maybe them themselves.
yeah,
Right? I mean,
True.
I think some of the things we did as kids is some of the things that y'all's kids are doing now. Like
Right.
things
I
I
was just
did.
gonna bring that up, yeah.
Things I did, I'm looking, I'm like, oh, I've done what Kobe's done. I've done what Wyatt's done, like I've been there, done that.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yep.
again, I mean,
that's what sometimes I got to remember when my kids do things. I'm like, man, I've done worse.
yeah.
it's true.
Right.
It's true. But
I just didn't get caught.
But it's still a hard pill to swallow, to have to take ownership of the things that you did,
Right.
and then how to deal with those kids in your situation as a parent, and taking that role of discipline. It's really hard to fit that in.
It is, and that's why we kind of wanted to do this. We want to bring in different people and just kind of dissect this a little bit. I think tonight's going to be more of just, hey, we want to lead to this. I want to put that out there too. If there's any listeners that listen to this and they have stories or advice or a question to ask some of these parents that we do bring in, like Mike,
post them on Facebook or on Instagram. Send us a DM, or you can email us at ray@spiritualdebriefing.com. That'll come in, or just post it up on one of the YouTube videos.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You get your own personal email. So
yeah. Hey, it costs for each one.
I know. I'm just joking.
As soon as we get some sponsors, we'll get some more emails. No, I'm just kidding.
But I mean, and even raising kids like not your biological kids is a challenge. Adoption and fostering as those type of parents brings its own set of challenges, and so it'd be great to hear advice from some of those. Some people that have done that.
Yeah, because you really have to put it in a different perspective when you have to foster child, because the way you discipline a foster child is completely different in terms of what you can and can't do, and most of them already come with some story behind them. A lot of them, one of the children we had was a drug baby, and so had real serious issues that we had to deal with, but you can't discipline them in the same way that you might with your own children. And so it is a unique situation, but it's such an important thing that's necessary. There's so many kids out there that need parents. Spending 28 years in the classroom and seeing those kids in my classroom and having the compassion for them, that's a real big need. And I know that's a push that we have in the community, and I would love to see it a big push in our church as well.
Right.
Because, again, I got my little list of Bible quotes here to kind of help out with this, but, everyone's probably heard all of them before, and the one I put right at the top is Proverbs 22:6, train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he's old, he'll not depart from it. Sounds great. Doesn't work in practice every time, as I've seen, but I also think that what's missing a lot nowadays, and I'm not saying from anyone around this table for sure, because I don't know all of it, but there's a lot of people who rely on other people to train their children, to discipline their children, and they just take too much of a hands-off approach.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I was just doing ministry for 12 years. I've seen that a lot of churches used as the babysitter for kids, and it's our job to teach them.
Yep, and this is supposed to be a little bit of extra, not the main source of it. When your church is not where your child should learn everything; it's where what you have taught them should be reinforced. Is really what it should be. And I know that's difficult because our society is now, every minute of our day is filled with something. There is no downtime anymore. It's hard to carve out time to sit together as a family even and do anything together, play a game together, let alone read the Bible together. But I think it's one of the most important things to do. And even going back, I wish I would have been able to start sooner with my daughter in doing that. We don't get to it every day, but even if we didn't get to it during the day, at least when I'm putting her down to bed, I'm like, all right, we're going to read a little bit of the Bible, and I'm going to talk about what I've learned and what I think it means, and ask her what she thinks it means, and I'm hoping it will help.
Right.
I just tell you, don't give up on that. As just raising my children when they were younger, we spent a lot of time together. We did a lot of the home devotions kinds of things. As I got older, they got more involved. I backed off, and even though all of my children professed to be Christians and we took them to church, there was a point in time where I have to fall on my sword and say that I relied a lot on the youth pastor when kids were in the youth group. Hey, they're in church and they're hanging around with Christian kids, so that kind of filling the void. And so that home devotion, that stuff that you're supposed to do at home all the time, it took a back seat and to a point where we didn't do it at all. We just then kind of expected, because our children were all Christians, we didn't have to do that anymore. So you just have to be careful about that.
Yeah, we need to start doing ours too. And my daughter, she applied for a church camp in Iowa for the summer, and she had an interview. And it was, what caught her off guard was, what is your favorite Bible verse? And she was like, bah. But then the guy kind of switched and says, "Hey, what are your favorite stories in the Bible?" And then she goes, "Okay, yeah, brrr," But when she told me that, I'm like, man, we need to get more family devotion in. But like you said, every minute of the day is full. Mm-hmm. And I just said that too. I need to reprioritize my life because everything is just busy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And even my daughter told me that last night. She says, "So I heard a comment on the radio. It said, the more available you are, the less important you are." And I says, "Well, yes, but if you're available to everybody all the time, your importance is probably lowered."
Right.
So, and I'm like, that's how I am. I just say yes. Sometimes I just got to say no.
Right. Because you could. What good is being important to something that isn't important?
Right.
Because you could be busy doing something that you're important to that thing, but if it is not important, then that's nothing.
Well, and when you as a parent say yes to everyone else,
you're saying no to your kids.
You're saying no to your kids, and that, as somebody who came from that, and that's why it's so hard for me to say no, is because that's what I saw my dad all the time, going to do stuff for other people. Right? That was the way I was raised up. It was you always helped other people. And so, and then I was like, okay, well, what about me? Like, yeah, you showed up to my games, but what about me at the house? What about playing catch with me at the house? What about just sitting down on the back porch with me? What about, so we just got to be, we got to be careful with that. And I see that a lot in the schools now too, is I see kids longing for some sort of parental affection.
Yeah, like connection.
Because we do. Like, I've got one kid at school that, this kid, I mean, I love the kid. He's a cool kid. But his parents he goes to football practice and he goes to football training, and his parents are always gone and doing things, and and so I feel bad for the kid. I really do, because he's wanting some sort of attention, and the way that kids do it now is in a negative way. They act out, and so they get attention, but it's not the right attention.
That's a guaranteed way to get attention, is negative. Yeah. You don't get enough from the positive, unfortunately.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm not saying that it's you're a horrible parent if you do, always go, because I don't know what that's like. I don't know what that's like to be a parent, but I know what that's like to be a kid of a parent. And so sometimes I feel like we got to sit back and think about, okay, if I say yes to this, who am I saying no to?
And I've even found recently, so like one of the things, I get up in the mornings and, try to do some Bible reading. Usually I don't have near as much time for it as I want, but then I'll put on like a podcast. So, usually listen to one of my Bible study podcasts while I'm getting ready in the morning and doing all that. And my daughter has been getting up pretty early, about the same time, usually right after I do, because I think she just hears me puttering around out there. And so she'll come out, and for quite some time, I just kept my earpiece in, and I was listening to my podcast, and she'd be asking me questions, and I'd be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, what?" And one morning, my wife was like, "You're not paying any attention to her. She's trying to engage with you and connect with you." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm listening to my Bible podcast. This is my Bible time." But I think God would be okay if I paused it and took it out. And so I've been trying to do that now. As soon as she's done, with all the little chores she does in the morning, and she comes and she actually starts talking to me, I'm like, okay, pause what I'm doing, take the headphone out, and actually just talk to her, engage with her, and spend some time with her. And the best part about it is after just a couple days of doing it, so I make her breakfast, and she's praised for her breakfast every morning, and she has, right after I started doing that, one of the things she started throwing there, she's like, thanks Lord for this time with my dad, it's so great. And man, did that make you feel good. And it's only like 20 minutes usually before I gotta like boogie in and go do work, but just hearing her say, "Thank you Lord for this time with my dad," just really important, And so something even when you think you're doing the right things, sometimes got to stop doing it's all about what I wanted to do, you know, and spend some more time with her because it goes so darn fast.
Oh, yeah, it does. Yep, it does. And Mike, you could probably attest to that too.
Absolutely. And I'll say that one of the biggest regrets, or one of the biggest regrets I have from raising kids, is that I get up early and do Bible study all the time before the kids got up. And then I went on with the day. But they never saw me in Scripture. They never saw me. They just saw the dad that was getting him ready for school and getting him ready for whatever. And I really wasn't a good example for them to actually watch. I'm in Scripture. This is a time that we can do that as a family. Because, again, it sounded like a good, I'll get it all done. I'll be quiet. It'll be my quiet time and so forth. And then I can kind of get the kids together. But all they see is you're fulfilling a bunch of tasks. You're not really spending time with me. You're just fulfilling a bunch of tasks. That's what that's what dads are supposed to do. This is your checklist of things you're supposed to do to get us ready to go to school.
Yeah. Yeah. I like sometimes when they throw it back in your face, but we'll probably discuss that more later. But
Absolutely.
But hey, Randy's not here, and let me just throw out a quote real quick.
All right.
Randy gave me his list of quotes to throw out.
All right.
And I saw this one on his list. It was kind of funny. Wait, where'd it go?
You didn't highlight it.
I know he didn't highlight it.
It's like kids; they just
it
run
says,
off.
It says having one child makes you a parent. Having two makes you a referee. 3 or more, now you're basically a bouncer.
Pretty much.
Is that right, Mike?
Well, actually, I have to confess that as we had more children, it got easier.
Oh, really?
It just the flow of the household went much better. Kids kind of had expectations. The first 3 that we had were definitely challenges, and of course one of those 3 now is often living in the streets now. So looking back in retrospect, really would have loved to be able to change those first developmental years that maybe could have made an impact on them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you never know. There's so many things, they talk about, is it nature, is it nurture?
Right.
I mean, I think most of the real experts agree that it's both. There are certain things that are programmed into you from the beginning, and I think that's, God's will for your life. And sometimes I think we sadly have to accept that it's not at all what we would picture it to be. It's not pretty like we'd want it to be, and there are people who, and I know, Mike, you've lost a child too,
right.
And that's something that you do have to look at and say, okay, there's a plan there. We don't know what it is. It might not even been planned for you. It could have been a plan for somebody completely different, or you never know who the plan is for. And hopefully at the end we'll understand. Hopefully at the end we'll get that playbook and be like, oh, I get it now.
Mm-hmm.
But until then, we just have to keep going.
And the way I come to peace about the loss of my daughter is that I found out that after her passing, one of her friends that was not a Christian came to know the Lord as a result of that. So I just kind of put it in perspective that Anna's time was done. She did her mission. She brought someone by her lifestyle to the Lord, and then the Lord took her. So it gives me the peace to know that she accomplished a pretty important mission, brought somebody to the Lord.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It is.
And those ripples, you don't know where it's going to go.
No.
Because you could just see that one person, and she does one person, and she does one person, and then all of a sudden that person does 1,000 people. Right. That's the Lord's plan. We don't get to see it. The timeline is way bigger than we'll ever understand.
Yep. Absolutely.
And so we can't focus on those things because they'll drag you down. It's one of the things I've been trying to speak to some of my family members about. My brother and his wife just lost their child who they were going to have. It was, they kind of knew early on there were some issues with the development. And so right before Thanksgiving, they lost their child who was coming. And it's been tough for both of them because it was, it's their 4th kid they were going to have, but it was going to be their first boy. And so my brother was really excited about that. And I know that, my sister-in-law, she's just struggling with that loss. There's no way I think we could even empathize with the loss that a mother has in those situations. It's definitely deep. And I just, try to, again, talk about the Lord's plan, the Lord's will, and the fact that you can't let that change and diminish what you're doing for the rest of your children. She's still got 3 other children, and they need everything that they needed before.
Right.
And probably even maybe more, even though they're real young, so I don't know exactly how much it affected them, but at the same time, you can't give up, you can't stop, and you have to take everything in stride and take everything and just keep saying, okay, Lord, this is your will. What's the next step? Where do I go next? What do I do next?
I can assure you, you're a parent all your life.
Yeah.
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 No, Jed, how many kids you got?
6.
Mm.
I'm halfway through. I agree. I don't agree with Randy's little quote that you read. I don't know that you get to bouncer. You're stuck in referee, though. That's for sure.
Definitely.
But they're everyone different. Every one of them you got to handle differently, and some of them is, well, the oldest is, he was good until he was out of the house. Next one was out of the house, was fine. We had a little hiccup here with the next one, and then I don't know. They all have their little quirks and little problems, but I mean,
there's not a perfect child.
You
out
don't
there,
handle
or a perfect parent.
any of them the same.
Right.
You can't discipline any of them the same. I think the main thing is to be a good example, to try to lead the right way in everything you do. And there comes a point where you as a parent, you can do all that you can do, but it's finally up to them. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're the ones that are going to make their mind up which direction they're going to go.
I get that a lot, especially like as kids are graduating high school, going off to college. I hear parents all the time, what do I do now? And I just look at them, I'm like, have you done everything God has asked you to do for that kid? Yes. There's nothing you can do.
There's nothing you can do.
You can pray for them. You can continue to love them, support them in any way that you need to. But I think as far as the hand-on parenting that you had as they were going up through their childhood, high school years, I think at that point, it's time to you got to take the hand off and let them fly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You got to let them fly, and all you can do is pray and be like, hey, you need me, I'm here, I love you, I support you. But I think that's it.
That's it.
I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be there next year. I mean,
right.
Autumn's graduating this year. I'm going to be there at that college. But I don't think it's going to be just hands off and just go, here you go, you can just do whatever. But I still think I'm going to be involved in her life. I'm going to still,
You're going to be involved.
You're going to be involved, but I don't know. I guess when I say hands off, like
discipline-wise?
The curfews quit, the discipline, that's what I mean is that part of the parenting. Yeah, you're still going to have an influence. I mean, my dad still has an influence on me all the time. I call him all the time.
Right.
I'm 32. I'll be 33 in March. But I think as far as when we talk about the discipline, the raising up, the directing, I think that part kind of...
It definitely changes. It does.
I'd say it changes.
And I know every situation's different as well, too.
Right.
Even the pastor, he had mentioned that, one of his kids, as she'd gotten to that age where she was going to college, but yet she was still living at home. And, of course, the whole, he's paying for college, paying for her food, paying for pretty much everything. He says, as long as I'm paying, my rules still. If you want your rules, then you need to be supporting yourself. So there's no exact handoff point. There's no, this is the line. It's kind of fuzzy. Every kid's probably different. When you guys started talking about this, is actually one of the Bible verses I pulled up, Psalm 127, verse 3. Children are a gift from the Lord. They're a reward from him. But part of that you have to understand is, I don't want to say it's a temporary gift, but you've got your time, as you said, with them. You've got your direct time. There's certain important things you need to make sure you take care of when they're real little, and when they're growing, and then when they get older. And at a certain point, you become less the actual rudder and more of the guy at the calling out the helm maneuvers as opposed to the actual guy steering.
That's right.
You know, and you can keep trying to guide them. You can keep trying to give them advice. But yeah, if you did it right, I think they will listen to you. If you've done it, if you've been able to speak to them, listen to them, importantly too, and let them feel free to speak and tell you the truth, I think you'll have a better chance of it as you go. And even with how open I've tried to be with my daughter and how much I've told her, you can tell me anything, you can talk to me about anything. You know, I'm not going to, I've constantly tried to tell her, if you make a mistake, if you break something, if something goes wrong, I want you to come to me and talk to me about it. And I'm not going to be mad if you come to me. I'm mad when you hide it from me. And she's really good about it, but she's still every now and again still. You just, that's in nature. You can't help it. You're like, oops, well, no one is going to know about this. So anyway, it's hard to, you're never going to know if you're doing it right at the time. That's the hardest part about it. You know, you're steering a ship from inside. You have no idea where it's actually going.
Yeah, one of the things you'll find out is that the child that's most like you is the one that you're going to have the most battles with.
Oh yeah,
and they're very headstrong, and you usually get those button heads constantly trying to impose your will on them. I've had strong-willed children. I know some here in this room have strong-willed children, and they're going to do what they want to do, at least in their thought process. And what's going to be frustrating for those of you who have seniors that are going out in the college world is that they're going to eventually rebel to some extent because of their independence. And that causes us as parents to be frustrated even more, because we say in our heads, we taught them all the things. We prepared them like we thought they did. Where did they come up with these ideas? And some of you were born and raised in the church. I was an adult convert, but some of you were born and raised in the church. You got to kind of reflect back in your days as a teenager or young adult, how you rebelled as well. Understand it's going to probably happen. We just hope that it doesn't go to an extreme where you can't reel them back in.
Right.
And that's where I think where Derek was talking about, where I want to still be involved. Yeah, I don't have a curfew. I can't dictate, but I'm still going to be a focus on your life, and I'm going to see when you do stupid things or do things that are not real wise, and I'm still, as a parent, going to point them out. You're not going to like them. You're going to get upset with me. That's called tough discipline. That's just tough love, but that's just what parents have to do, and you just can't quit. I'm 66 years old, and I'm still parenting some of my kids that are sometimes acting like teenagers.
And I heard today too, to show tough love, you have to have a relationship with that person. You know, so having that relationship with the kid, with my daughter and my son. There's some I've seen some being a cop out there and seeing broken families, and there's some that don't have parents. So
yeah, I just actually heard it last night. Somebody was talking about the issues in society is a lot of them are stemming from the fact that the family unit's falling apart. There's a lot of children who only have single parents,
right.
Wives or moms or dads. Either way, you're missing something from that, what's put together. But they even straight up said, all you got to do, if you don't believe me, go to the jail and talk to the people in the jail. And most of them came from fatherless homes.
Right.
And so it's a very important role of the father to lay down that discipline.
It is.
And it's a different type of discipline than moms lay down. And we know, again, Proverbs 29:17, discipline your children, and they will give you peace of mind and will make your heart glad. Now, that doesn't mean in the moment, right? But you also have to, again, Colossians 3:21, do not embitter your children, or they'll become discouraged. So there is a line. You can go too far with discipline. Yeah. You need to find that barrier where you're saying, okay, you've done wrong. There are consequences to this, but I'm not doing this out of anger. I'm not coming at you and going overboard against it. And that is also difficult to do depending upon what they've done.
You got the verse in there, don't antagonize your kid too?
Yeah. that is the same one. Don't embitter. Do not embitter. Do not antagonize your children. They'll become discouraged.
But with discipline comes correction.
Yeah. There has to
be.
Yeah.
That was one of the things I think, at least like with my dad, was he disciplined me. But then we sat down and talked about it. And that helped me for later on in life, that something comes up, oh, I shouldn't do that. So
Yep. Or yeah,
so
Ephesians
you gotta
6:4.
you gotta have the correction.
That might have been the one you were thinking of, Derek. Ephesians 6:4. Fathers, do not provoke your children
Yeah,
to
that's it.
anger
Yeah.
by the way you
Yeah.
treat them. Rather, bring them up with discipline and instruction that
Right.
comes from the Lord. And I think that's the
Get us-
important part. Instruction.
The instruction part is where we often.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if you can bring it to the Bible, then especially if you've been raising them in church, it's not. Then you're not saying this is my rule. You're like, no, like this is God's rule. I'm trying to help you out here.
I had a pastor I served under that did that. I mean, he disciplined to the way that verse says. He believed in spankings. I mean, we all grew up that way, at least around this table, I think, right? I mean, I did.
I did.
Mine was paddles.
Paddles. But
Belt.
Yeah, I would say there was a belt used once.
Yeah.
I
Flip-flops.
got one. I was too good.
Wooden
Oh, really?
spoons, whatever
Yeah.
mom could get a hold of.
Once
But-
the belt was used once, I was never caught again. I mean, I was never disciplined again.
But what I liked was, and he told me he did this, but I saw him discipline his son and then bring his son onto his lap and was like, I love you. Here's why I did it. Now let's look at what Scripture says about this. And I was like, man, that I think when we talk about discipline is the way, as a Christian man, it should.
Yeah, I don't like disciplining my kids.
Right,
I
no.
can tell you that, like, just spanking my kid, and it's like, like my parents used to say, it hurts me
Hurts me
worse
more than it hurts
blah, blah,
you.
blah. I'm like, yeah, whatever.
That's when you're sitting there going, no, it doesn't. You
Yeah,
don't know that.
Right. Now it does. Now I can see that.
Now you see.
Yeah, it's like
You understand.
You wait till your dad gets home, and then you get home, you're like, you know what your son did? La, la, la. I'm like, oh my goodness.
I don't know that yet.
Yeah.
Does it really hurt you as bad?
It does.
Does it?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
One of the things me and Lisa had a conversation today. With the kids, nobody spanks like they used to.
Right.
I mean, that's just kind
You
of. A
don't
lot
u-
of them don't.
You don't use a frying pan?
No.
Mom did. Mom did.
Wooden spoon, yeah. But all this new discipline that the majority of people are using, there is no consequence.
There's not.
So you get disciplined. Okay, well, I'm good for so long. I get my phone back. Okay, I'm disciplined for so long, and this comes back. Or everything's always there's a way out.
Mm-hmm.
There's no more accountability.
There's no more accountability. It's always, oh, I'm bailed out. I'll be fine. But what happens when something serious comes along to a child that might put them in jail? I mean, that kid still has the mentality that, oh, I'll be all right. I'll get out. Everything will go back to me. They don't realize that it's just not there for them.
Yep. I mean, with our daughter, one of the, not too long ago, she lied about something that she did. And, for discipline, she lost the Nintendo. We took the Nintendo Switch away from her, and she didn't have it it was well over a month. Because she was like, how long? I said, until you deserve it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like you're grounded for 2 days. You're grounded for 1 week, anything like that. Because I think that kind of leads into, what you're trying to say is that it's just like, okay, well, I just got to wait it out. Just wait out my time. It was like, no, you need to earn this back. And this comes with you telling us the truth, with you getting your homework done, with you doing your chores around the house, and not asking, do I get it back yet? Do I get it back yet? You're going to get it back when I feel good and ready.
But if you use that same punishment again, okay, I can make it. I made it that time. But where Daniel was talking about the spanking and pulling in the lap, and this is it. I mean, a little bit of physical pain really does good for the brain. Mm-hmm. I mean, it makes something work.
Like, I remember what not to do now.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I've got plenty of spankings. I was not a bad kid. I really didn't get them for things that I'd like to give some spankings for now.
Right.
But it made me make better choices, and I didn't get into major trouble.
Right. I remember once back, I don't remember how old I was, but my brother and I were in Boy Scouts, and we had just gotten our Boy Scout bow and arrows. And, we were told, you don't play with them. And we said, okay. And one day when my parents weren't around, we were in the basement playing with them, shot an arrow through the window, got spanked for that.
Got spanked for that?
Got spanked for that for sure. And then after that, there was no, never. I didn't play with them when I wasn't supposed to ever again. After that, I knew it was because my dad. He said, "Listen, the point is what if you'd accidentally shot your brother instead of the window? Because I'm angry about the window. But I'm angrier about what could have happened. Right? Yes. So, and it hit home for me. It really did. And I wasn't that old. I was probably 8 or 9, something like that. And then later there came a time where also he said, okay, now you're old enough. You can go and set up in the backyard. You know where it's safe. You know how to use it properly. I've watched you. And he graduated me, if you will, to when it was okay. So it does work.
It does work.
You really kind of have to think about the two terms of discipline and punishment. Scripture does say, spare the rod, spoil the child. So there is a point in time where physical punishment is required. But we always have to make sure that we attach that to the purpose, kind of like your dad was saying. Not only was he angry that they broke the window, but this is a consequence that could have happened. So there was a teaching, and Daniel was saying, there's a teaching that's taken place. Sometimes we just get angry and we punish our kids, and then our kids don't understand why they're really being punished, although they kind of do, but they don't really want to accept it, and they didn't learn anything from it. And so now we've defeated the purpose, because all you've done is inflicted punishment on them, and they develop a degree of bitterness over that. And trust me, it'll come back to haunt you, because over the course of 66 years, I've heard that come back to me many of time. Some of the choices discipline choices, what I call discipline, the punishment choices that I leveled on my children that were, at this point, egregious.
Oh yeah, they will remember. I saw a great little video the other day. This guy's like, one guy's like kids, and he walks up and his kid's sitting on the floor. He's like, I told you to brush your teeth. You did? When did you do that? Like a minute ago. Oh, and then cuts to the next scene, and the kid opens up the door, wakes up his dad, says, all right, come on, let's go. What are you talking about? Well, 2 weeks ago, you said on Saturday we could go to the park.
That's Wyatt. Wyatt reminds me of everything that I say.
He does not forget. But yet you tell him to go, hey, go take out the trash.
Right.
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah. That's Wyatt to a T. Yep.
You got another quote?
I do. You know what? This one. Yeah, let me know what you think about this. This is Randy's quote. Okay. These are Randy's. Can't take credit for them. You cannot raise your children as your parents raised you, because your parents raised you for a world that no longer exists.
It's good to think about, though. It really is. I mean,
we could say that when we were raised,
we didn't have social media. We didn't cell phones in our pockets. The internet. We didn't have any of that stuff.
I can say probably with the older half of mine and the younger half, I see the difference in there. Mm-hmm. It's not the same world.
Yep. Yeah, it's not even from you're talking that you're both your kids, but even from the young to the old.
From the old to the young, there's a difference in.
Yep. And that's I think one of the important things to remember. And again, this another Bible quote, Deuteronomy 6 and 7. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. And again, that's the one universal truth is the Bible. It still applies, even with all the new stuff that's going on today.
Oh, yeah,
it still applies. So that's a route you can go to. That's a well you can go to, and try to bring everything back to that. And you're not always going to be able to, but you know what? The cell phone also works in our favor in that way too, because you can do a quick little Google Bible search and be like, I'm going to find a good verse to bring out here real quick before I go walking in there. And it can help you out. And I'm not great at it yet either, because I can never remember. I was like, I know there's a verse about this, but I can't find the darn thing. But at least I couldn't imagine if I had to try to leaf through the book to find it, because I never would, And it is a total different day and age now, because back when Deuteronomy was written, they were talking about the fact that it was all in your head. There was nothing written, so you had to just know it and memorize it. And man, I wish I could do that. I wish it worked that way nowadays.
We were like that too. We remember phone numbers. And
it's true. It's true.
Everything. We remembered everything.
Yep. That is true.
But remember what Brother Roger preached about the good old days. And we look at, yes, we have different challenges because we got different technologies, but they're the same set of sins. They're just easier accessible nowadays, and so you have to deal with them with Scripture the same way. It's harder sometimes to catch them because of all the nuances of our culture, but the sin is still the same set of sins, and we still got to address them the same way. I was from an era where computers didn't exist, those kinds of things. Our calculators were like size of a notebook page.
Yeah, didn't you have you move the beads back and forth?
Yeah,
Yeah, what do they call those?
abacus.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did those too. God, I love you guys.
Chisel and stone.
I am glad you're here, Mike.
I did shave before I came.
Jed, is that just because you're not the oldest now?
That's right.
But that there are a lot of things that are out there, but the sins are still the same,
Right.
and you still got to address them the same way. And you can't use it's technology that's to fault. It's the foundation that we laid in the home before they even got to that point.
Yep.
And whether or not why we allow our children to have cell phones at age 8, 6. Some kids that I taught in school had better cell phones than I did. They have more technology than I had. And that's a kind of a parent decision. We as Christians can make an impact there.
Yep. And if you're willing to give your child a cell phone, you can't just take and hands off say, well, I don't know what they're doing. Yeah, you could if you wanted to. Take the time. There are apps for that stuff. My daughter she's got a tablet and she's got a laptop, and I've got it set up so I know everything she does on either one of them. Now, granted, I do have a little bit more of a tech background, but there are people you can talk to that there are places you can pay a little money to get those stuff set up on there. You should not, and in my opinion, until my daughter paying for her own cell phone, I'm going to know exactly who she's calling. I'm going to know who she's texting. I'm going to know what games she's playing, what websites she's visiting, because that's my job as a parent.
But be careful. They can get more tech savvy than you or the apps and go around them.
She'll try.
Trust me.
Absolutely.
we use Go Guardian in school to watch like kids screens and stuff.
Yep.
And they know how to go around that to where it looks like they're on what they're supposed to.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you walk over to where they're at and you're looking at your laptop and you're like, wait, it says you're on this.
Oh, yeah.
But you're doing that.
My daughter thinks she's smart. She thinks she knows her way around these things. But there's additional, and it all comes down to, if you are going to install Go Guardian, the next thing you should Google is how do you beat Go Guardian. You should know how they do it before they do it, because they're going to learn it. They're 100% going to learn it. And again, my daughter's done the same thing. She finds little sneaky tricks, little things to do, and
If they don't, someone else will. Tell them.
There's a reason.
Share the wealth.
There's a reason why we are homeschooling our daughter, because one of the definite things that my wife said early on is, she says, I don't want other kids teaching her. I want her learning from adults. And when you send her to a school where there's, the adults are outnumbered 30-1 or more, she's going to learn from kids more than she's going to learn from adults. And I think that may be an issue that we have in our society today, is that kids learn way more from each other than they do from the people who actually know anything. And so that's, we made that decision. It's not easy. There's sacrifices to be made to do it, but it's one of the things that we decided we were going to do. So, and I'm glad to see more and more people are doing it nowadays. Homeschooling's on this huge resurgence.
Oh, yeah.
COVID helped out a lot,
yeah.
because people got to see us like, this is what they're teaching you. This is what you're doing at school. Okay. And, even if you think you can't homeschool, there are now homeschool pods. There are people who are starting small little homeschool type groups. And again, you can say, we can't do that. It just doesn't fit for us. It's like, no, you're just not willing to make the sacrifices that are involved. If you want to do that, you can.
Yeah, we homeschooled our four oldest up through the youngest of those 4 to 4th grade, and then we adopted a special needs child that had OTPT an hour away 3 days a week, and put him back into public schools. But you're right, the foundation that you can have, we had a Christian curriculum. We were able to focus on that. Mm-hmm. I wish we would have been able to, or could have, but we chose to go a different direction. So.
Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying, I get it. Sometimes you're not going to be able to. I'm not saying everybody should homeschool. That ain't going to work. But you have to understand that, think about it, if you're sending them to a place for 6 to 8 hours a day where God does not exist and is often not is excluded and even looked down upon, you're going to have to make that up, right? There's no way about it. If they spend 6 hours there 5 days a week, you've now got, what is it? My math's terrible. 30 hours. It shouldn't be that bad. 30 hours there. How are you going to make up that 30 hours with God outside of there? That's a lot of work. Because, the old Native American tale of there's two wolves inside of you, right? It is actually the truth, though. What you feed is what's going to grow.
Right.
So, right, if they're getting 3-4 hours a week of God and 30 hours a week at school, then what do you think's going to win in most cases? That's a battle there's no way you're going to win that battle in majority cases. That's why I think we run into a lot of the problems we do, even with children who go to church, go to Bible study, come to Wednesday night. They do all those different things. What's that add up to? 5 or 6 hours a week, tops.
Yeah, it's funny too. And I don't want to bring in the negative either, but growing up and then, we see homeschoolers and they're like, man, they're so socially awkward. They don't talk to other kids, and they don't play sports and they didn't do this. And, that was always our thing was like, man, every time I dealt with a homeschooler, I was growing up, it was just socially awkward. Then,
Yep.
And then when we had kids, when we started to have kids, we were thinking about homeschooling too, but we were too career driven and and
that's our society, unfortunately.
Well, it's career driven and then really like my wife, she's like, I don't have the patience for it. And I get it. She don't.
Yep.
But
yep.
I think it's great. I that's one of my regrets, is I kind of wish that we would have just kind of started to homeschool and get that foundation built,
Because it's much more like it used to be. My mom and dad both went to very small schools where it was 20 people, grades kindergarten to high school, all in the same room, learning from someone that they knew. Right, this is Miss So and So. She lives in this little town, right? And I get it. You can't all go back to that. And I also understand there's the argument of the socialization to be said. But if you're bringing them to church. Harmony's involved in American Heritage Girls, so she does that. And I know you guys have met her. She is not socially awkward.
No, I'm just saying that that was kind of my perspective as growing up as a kid.
And I get that because you can pick out that one socially awkward kid real easy and say, oh, there's the homeschooler. You don't realize there's probably 20 more you've met that you didn't realize were homeschoolers because not everybody's wearing a little badge on. I was homeschooled, You
don't have that?
Yeah, because ours was the same way. I mean, they went to church, they had a children's group, youth group, played sports, played soccer, brownies, Girl Scouts, the whole. I mean, they were involved. And then our homeschool group actually had a Spanish teacher that they go to as a group in a community group, and they learn Spanish and they interacted with another culture. And then with our special needs child, a handicapped child, our children were exposed to a special needs child, and so they were able to deal better with special needs child in the community, which most of us kind of just, I don't know what to do with this child.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, because like our old pastor, the church I came from Arizona, his kids were all homeschooled, and they're fine. It's perfect.
Yep.
And so yeah, that was just one of the things that I thought of as as when I was growing up.
Right. Right. And today has made it so much easier than it used to be. Because back when we were growing up, if you homeschooled, you pretty much had to be done by your parents. There wasn't an internet. There wasn't websites you could go to meet other homeschool groups.
Satellite.
TV
or whatever.
Yeah. There was not from, and we don't actually participate in a lot of them right now because we just moved to the area and my wife's got a good setup going or anything. But we've run into numerous people who are like, oh, yeah, we live in the neighborhood and we've got 6 kids who get together at this house on Monday and they go to this house on Tuesday and they go over to this place on Wednesday, and my wife's like, okay, that's too much, I'm not doing that. But and it's fine. Maybe as Harmony grows, maybe she gets older, we'll try to plug into some things like that. But for those of you out there who might be interested in this kind of thing but thinking personally, we can't do it. Because again, our society has driven us to a point where it's so difficult to do. You can almost not live as a single income family anymore.
No, yeah.
It is darn impossible. Again, you have to make lots of sacrifices. We have not gone on a single vacation. We can't afford vacations because we're a single income family. You don't get to do that, right? We don't have brand new cars. We don't have brand new phones or technology. We do well. I make good enough money to do what we do, but at the same time, if my wife was working, oh man, would we be living a completely different lifestyle? We'd have almost instantly double the money that we have right now, right? Because she made plenty of money doing what she was doing, but we made a choice, we made a decision, and we made a sacrifice. And that is for our daughter, but also I think for us too. We get to see her so much more, and we really do enjoy that. I mean, it is amazing. But if, let's say, you wanted to do it, but you don't think it's economically feasible, or again, maybe you don't have the right temperament for it, then look at the local community. Find a local homeschool pod that you can plug in. And yeah, that means that probably you have to do something. Okay, well, we'll take them on Saturdays and go to the park and play, and we can do sports. You're going to have to help out in most cases. But it is so much easier nowadays to get to that homeschool type of environment that you want to than it was even 5 years ago. There's some great stuff online to help you out. There's multiple different. We found a couple really good biblically based online programs that can get you curriculum, that can get you worksheets, that can get you even help you out. In some states, it's difficult to homeschool still. They'll even help you out with legal stuff if you need to, lawyers and things like that. So there's far less barriers nowadays than there was. And so, again, I'm just saying this because if there's anybody who's listening who's thinking about this but thinks that there's things that they just can't provide, you don't know until you look. You really don't. So
Daniel, you're new into the classroom this year. What kind of things are you dealing with when you know that you're dealing with children from a broken home? What kind of things are you seeing in the classroom that you can make an impact on? Because there are so few of us Christian educators out there that are trying to make an impact, and so many Christian educators are afraid to take advantage of the legal rights they have.
Yeah.
How can you impact those kids that are from those broken homes that we're talking about?
Well, just like that one I was talking about earlier, that young man, his parents just this year split. And so from the start of the year till Christmas break, I got to see a behavior change in him, and not for the positive. Without going really into too much, his parents did it pretty decently. They spend equal amount of time with him, so that's good. But what I see in a lot of our students and him is they don't know how to express their frustration. They don't know how to express their aggravation with the situation. And for me, what's nice is with this age group that I'm working with, 5th and 6th grade, is, I was 7th grade when my parents split. And so I was about their age going through the same things they are of a broken home. And so, I can mention, hey, I get what you're going through. I come from a divorced family. I come from a broken home, man. I was tore up. I understand it. What can I do to help you? And the question I get, and it's probably my favorite question I get, is, how did you get through it? And that kind of opens the door for me.
Yep, absolutely.
And I can say, I relied on my church family. Oh, well, what do you mean church family? Oh, cool. Now I get to open the door even further. And so I use my experiences and using that, I start with something so broad, whether it's a broken home, whether it's coming from a dad who's always busy or a parent who's always busy that they don't have time for you. It's 5th and 6th grade. We get kids who with depression and anxiety and who have tried to commit suicide. And I've been there. And so I get to use those to begin a conversation that will eventually open the door by a question they ask for me to get to use Jesus to answer it. And I want to go back and address, before we continue on with that, something with homeschooling. Homeschooling's great.
I sense a but.
I know.
But
Because a public school teacher.
No. And it's not because of the public school teacher. It's really not. I get the whole co-ops and I get the cohorts, and you're doing things as groups. And a lot of times what I've seen from homeschools and their cohorts is you usually gravitate towards people in a cohort who are like you. You usually gravitate towards other Christians homeschooling.
Mm-hmm.
At what point do your kids then use a mission field to share Jesus? The public school, and it's not because of a school teacher. It's not because I'm married to a school teacher. It's because I'm a youth pastor who has taught these kids, share the gospel with your friends.
Yeah.
Right, I get it. Just because you're grown up in church doesn't mean you're a Christian. But how many more people can they impact at a public school as opposed to a cohort of 5 Christians?
Right. No, that's true. If you're in the right area.
You know what I mean? And so that's where I'm like, I had a BCM director. He did it. I think he did it right. The foundation, kindergarten through, what do you do? Kindergarten through like 6th grade. The first 6-7 years of school, really laying the foundation. He did it right. They homeschooled.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Nothing wrong with that. When they hit 7th grade, when it gets toughest for kids, was when he sent his kids into the school to let them go into the mission field to share the gospel. And that's where I'm like, we've got to be careful. I get your choice, right?
Right. Well, and we were in a different place too, because in Hawaii, Harmony was told she can't talk about Jesus at school.
Right.
And they literally told her, no, you can't talk about
right,
that here.
Right.
And that was when we were like, boom, she's out.
I just want us to be careful, though, saying that you can't, because you can. I see it all the time. I see kids all the time sharing the gospel. And so, those parents who can't or who choose not to homeschool, or, I just want us to be careful the way that we come across with that point of homeschooling, is saying, because they choose not to homeschool, sometimes they can't because they have to work.
Oh, yeah.
Because they're a single mom.
Or a single mom. You got no choice there. Right. Yeah. I didn't mean to come off and say this is the only answer.
Yeah. So,
that's for sure.
So I just want us to, because I tell the kids all the time, hey, the school is your mission field to share Jesus with your friends.
Mm-hmm. And it's more important nowadays than ever.
Exactly. And we just talked about with that quote, you can't raise the kids the way that we were raised because it's different. It absolutely is different. And that's why I think even more us laying the foundation of who Jesus is, and we know that our kids are saved, put them in those schools. Let them share the gospel with those friends.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe those schools will flip back.
I got to say, definitely, we're in a different area than a lot, right? We're being in Arkansas. Because I saw a kid talking about his school, and I think he was from California. And it was just a young boy. I think he was around 9 or 10. And he was saying that, you can't be cool at school anymore unless you're gay or trans or something like that out there. Like, you're just basically, you are shunned and exiled because you're not something weird. You don't believe you're a dog, or you don't believe you're a fish, or all the weird stuff.
Yeah.
A cat. Right. All the weird things. That is being pushed as being trendy. And again, I'm not saying here, right? You see what's going on in the schools here that are different than what you might see in the other parts of the world.
And that's the thing, is there is some of it here.
Yeah, there is.
Right. But you got to push back against it. Somebody's got to. You can't seed the ground.
Right. And so, I tend to try to always have a smile on my face at school, always, and that's caused questions from other teachers. Why are you always smiling? Why are you always joyful? Why are you always happy? So then I can have those conversations with teachers.
Because God is good.
Exactly, and there are more kids that go to church and that are Christians in our schools than what people realize.
Mm-hmm.
And so by me being an example of, hey, you can be in this dark environment and still be joyful and still talk about it. We do a moment of silence at Bentonville right after the prayer. And I know everyone has their own kind of thought of a moment of silence. So that's not really praying. That's just having to sit there quietly. But I utilize that time to pray.
Yeah.
Of course, I keep my eyes open, and I don't pray out loud, but my mouth is moving. And I had a student come to me last semester, and he goes, Mr. Meadows, thank you. I said, you're welcome, man. I've enjoyed my time here. He goes, no. Thank you for being who you are. He's like, you don't say words out loud, but I see it. He's like, thanks for praying for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of...
Well, for 11 and a half years here in this district, I either co-led or led Fellowship of Christian Athletes at the 5th and 6th grade level, even when the district attempted to dissolve it because they said that a teacher couldn't be the sponsor of it because he was on contract. And so I was able to develop 5th and 6th graders that were actually bringing in their own guest speakers. They were actually bringing in the gospel message to the kids and trying to communicate that. But with that moment of silence at the beginning of the school year, I clearly told the students about the flag and the Pledge of Allegiance that I served as military. I talk about the In God We Trust that is in all the classrooms and why it's there. And I tell them what the moment of silence is all about, what its purpose is, and I tell them about what the law says about 1964, which is all according to the curriculum. So we don't have to back away from all of that. But one of the things you said earlier, kind of changing, when you were talking about the students and not being able to communicate, I think that's probably, as parents, one of the things that we don't do well with our kids that I know from my adult kids, I can sit down and now have a full conversation where we actually talk, as opposed to me being a parent and the child having to listen. And I would encourage that aspect as you're growing, raising children, to sit down and actually converse with your children. Not just give them a set of directions, not simply giving them a set of advice, but talking about what they really are interested in and why they're interested in. I think that's what happens with these broken homes.
Yep.
I know, Derek, you've probably seen a lot with a lot of domestic violence situations where you go to home and you see those children and you can see the terror on their face because they don't know, they can't go to mom, they can't go to dad because
right.
Mom and dad are fighting, so they don't have anybody to talk to and they're out in limbo. And so if you think about our kids having a conversation with us, letting them know that they have that security to be able to come, as you were talking about your daughter, being able to come to actually share without fear that, oh yeah, I broke a glass. I want to come talk about it so that we have a good understanding. I don't think we do that very well as parents.
No, you're right. Yeah, because, you always get, all you do is yell at me or, you give me directives all the time. And, even sometimes too, like I've been trying to recently change that where I could just sit and listen or, like for autumn, I'm like, okay, let's just sit and talk. I won't yell at you, and I just want to feel what you're feeling like, what is your emotions right now? Why are you feeling this way? Just tell me. I just want to listen, and then, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
But most of the time, we as parents, are, especially men, because we're fixers,
right?
We try to fix it.
We'll hear some of it, and we want to say that we're good listeners, but when we automatically interject, and we defeated the purpose for why we're having the conversation.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yes.
Being in the schools helped me realize too a little bit. When we discipline, a lot of times we're kind of up over them, right? I mean, you think about like when I look at other classrooms and like when the teacher's getting onto the kids, a lot of times it's, finger wagging and
Standing over
top of them,
Yep.
kind of. And I do things different. And a lot of teachers are like, how do you get through to that kid? I see that kid struggling, acting out, whatever it may be. And instead of standing up over them, I go sit down. And they just kind of look at me. Because a lot of them are like standing up, causing issues. And I just sit down beside where they should be sitting. And then they just kind of slowly sit down. And that opens up that communication because now I'm on their level.
Yeah, there's a psychology about
I get
that.
like with elementary kids, I get down on the floor on their level when I was in the elementary school, and the teachers were like, "How do you deal with that? How can you get them from such a red level is what we call it, right? Green, you're happy. Yellow, you're kind of you're getting a little frustrated. Red, you're like angry, upset, whatever." And they're like, how do you get them from a red to a green to where they can open up so quick? I'm like, because I don't sit and yell at them. I get on the floor. I sit where they should. And I let them understand that I'm there when they're ready. And I just sit there. I mean, there's been times I've sat there with like the elementary kids for 10, 15 minutes just sitting on the floor. And the principal walks by and I was like, okay. And like, because she knows what I was doing.
Yep. This with the way you guys are talking about, again, the school system we experienced was in Hawaii, right?
Yeah.
Completely different.
Completely
than here,
different.
because there's no Pledge of Allegiance in Hawaii
Yeah.
anymore. There's no quiet time. There's no, that has been sanitized out. And I'm sure there's probably lots of people listening who are in very similar type environments. And maybe that's another thing you got to look at is, and I hate to say it because I know it's something that's, I don't know if it's good or bad, but we are moving in this country to where there are, I'm not going to move to that state because of the way it is, right? I work for a company that's based in California, and when we said we were going to move, they're like, well, hey, you should move to California. I was like, never. I'm sorry. Because of the way the rules, the laws, the way the schools are done there, the way all that's done, not going to live there. I'll come visit. I'll come fly out anytime we got to do meetings, any of that, but I am not living in California because it's just, again, we're kind of tribalizing ourselves, but unfortunately, that maybe is the only option you got, right? If you are a single parent, if you don't have the ability to do the things that you need to do, then maybe you need to find an area where the school system is better than where you currently are. You got to move, and not everybody can do that either.
That's the number one demographic thing that happens when somebody moves to or considering to move someplace. Is they look at the school system.
Yeah.
I mean, that is like the number one.
Yep.
One of the reasons why this area is growing is because the reputation of the school district in the areas, Gravette, Bentonville, Rogers, Springdale, have a really positive demographics in terms of scores and so forth. And people are literally start, because a lot of people are working from home, and so they can basically move where they want to.
Yep.
And they're moving to places that tribalize them.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
That's why
too.
we're
That's
here.
why Arizona to Arkansas.
Yep.
Well,
Wife works at home, and
we went off on talking about schools a little bit there, but I want to challenge parents. Discipline doesn't always have to be spankings and physical. So like if you're struggling to get through to your kid, sit down and just wait and see what happens, because your kid's going to look at you strange at first. I guarantee it. The kids who have never had their parents just want to sit and listen and talk with them, they're going to look at you and be like, what's wrong with you? But then it's going to become one of those things to where they're like, oh, okay, I know you're not going to yell at me. I know you're going to help me get through whatever this is, because I always thought psychology was weird. I was a sociology-minded person, always society. But being in education, I'm starting to realize sometimes it's the psyche of a person. And sometimes they're acting out. That's the only way that they know how to express themselves because they've never been allowed to express any other way.
I think that Jed mentioned it earlier that all the kids have different personalities and you raise them all differently. I can think of my children, that strategy would work with some. Some would be perfectly content with that and sit there longer than I could.
Right.
That's right.
It's like, you don't say anything, I'm perfectly happy. I don't have to. I don't have to listen to you. I don't have to listen to the quote unquote lecture or whatever. But it is a good plan to kind of. You have to personalize the discipline for each of your children, and we sometimes. I should say I sometimes would discipline one child this way, and it works so well that I go try it on a second child, and it just blows up in my face.
That's right.
It just doesn't work.
The spankings didn't work for me.
Yeah.
Did not.
It's the same thing when you deal with people.
Yeah.
It's true.
It is.
Same thing. I could talk to you a different way than I could talk to him.
Yeah.
I can do certain things, and they, it clicks for you and doesn't click for him. There's just different ways, and the kids are different. They're different as well, and Wyatt, sometimes he needs a good, spanking. Where Autumn, she's at the age now you're gonna point and get red faced.
Yep.
But I wanted to bring this up. I saw this in Randy's quotes, and I think this is a problem that we're having right now with raising kids. Is don't raise your kids to have more than you had. Raise them to be more than you were. And I hear that a lot with parents right now. Is I want them to have what I didn't have. So us as parents, I'm going to be guilty. I'm guilty of it. Where we spoiled our kids because we gave them everything that we didn't have as kids. We didn't grow up with money as much. My parents did the best they could. They worked hard, and we didn't have the newest of everything. And every time we got something, we had to work on it to make it run. Mm-hmm. We couldn't go down there and just go buy a brand new 4-wheeler or truck or whatever. And so I really feel that that's a problem now. That's what we're doing, is almost spoiling the kids so much because we're giving them everything that we didn't have, so they don't have to work for much. They don't work for anything hardly. Now they're entitled. Their hand is out, and saying, "Well, this is all I know." And we're going to touch on this. We're going to continue on to that. But when I saw that quote, I'm like. And me and Jed we've had many discussions about this and how we spoil our kids too much.
Yeah. Well, that goes back to the positive thing that Ray was talking about homeschooling. When you're homeschooling, you got a single parent income. You can't buy those things, so that's
right.
So they just don't get them because you can't afford them.
Yep. Even my wife and I say Harmony's got a lot of toys, but there are a lot of real small toys. She doesn't got a lot of big toys, but she, and she doesn't know any different. And being that we only have one child, and that again wasn't by choice, but that's just the way it works out. But we, she does get a little bit spoiled. All kids do, I think.
Right.
Right. That's we can't help it. We love seeing the joy on their faces. It gives us joy to see them joyful, and so it's so easy to be like.
But it's temporary.
You want some ice cream?
Yeah, but I think some of those things are temporary as well.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
It's temporary, enjoyment and pleasures. And so, I kind of battle that right now with, our kids. And, they're spoiled. They don't think they are. You could tell them, hey, you're spoiled. And they're like, no, we're not.
Because they always know somebody who's got more than them.
Exactly.
There's always somebody who's got
Exactly.
more, and it'll always be that way.
Yeah.
We got to remember 3 John 1:4. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? And honestly, there's that temporary joy of, I got them a thing. I got them, got them a new tablet for Christmas, got them whatever it might be. But what will bring you eternal joy is seeing them grow up, knowing God,
Right.
and being truly godly. That you can just picture it, and it brings joy to your face right now, to your mind right now, just being like, if they're in church, if they're following the Lord, and if they, that's the most important thing. They might not be doing everything you want them to. They might not be, following your lead everywhere, but if they can at least follow God, they're going to be okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's kind of comical about the giving kids thing. Some of our conversations with my older children, especially, we call them the top half and the bottom half, top 4 and the bottom. But the oldest 4 will talk a big conversation about a memory where we actually were able to take them out to eat someplace. That was a big treat for them. That was now they all got water. They couldn't get a drink. They only got water, but they have memories of us being able to take them out one time. So they appreciated that. That was family time for us.
Yep. And I love that. Actually, that's my daughter's favorite thing to do, is do something with us. She of course, all kids, she likes to play video games. She likes to watch TV. But if at any point I came up and was like, hey, you want to go to the park, or you want to play a board game, or you want to go out in the backyard and do this and that, she pretty much on 100%, 90% of the occasions will drop exactly what she's like, yeah, let's go do it. So I love that she's still at that age. She likes hanging out with me. I'm trying to suck up as much of that as I can right now, because I know it's going to change. But even homeschooling, I know it will change. But at the same time, I do credit that to the fact that we've tried to bring her up with the Lord from the very beginning, and that's something I wish that, nothing against my parents. I just wish that was what they had done better for me, because I think it would have helped. I really do. So.
Yeah. I mean, I was raised in church from small, I don't know, 2nd grade maybe, or younger. I can't even remember. It's been a while. I think for me that time, it was great, because I mean, we learned about God. We went to church, and we met a lot of I met a lot of good friends. I don't know why we have to say we, but I met a lot of good friends, and I remember lock-ins at the church, and I was telling Jed today too. It's funny because you dated every girl in the church, but you just remember all those things in the church as a child, and it was fun, and everyone knows the history of me kind of going backwards a little bit, but I think it was that great foundation is what brings you back if you do backslide.
Yep.
Or if you do fall back, now you have that good foundation that this is where we need to be.
Right. Well, it was like I mentioned last Sunday. I was raised in the church too, but again, I did not coin this phrase. I'm just stealing it. But I was raised as a spiritual streaker, because I was given salvation, a helmet of salvation. That's it. I had nothing else. Right. My parents, we went to church on Sundays. Yeah, I did youth group, but I did the lock-ins. I did that type of stuff. But they didn't ever reinforce it at home. We didn't read the Bible at home. We didn't talk about the Bible at home. So again, all I had on was that helmet of salvation. I had nothing else.
I think that's the key. I think that we think as parents, we brought our children, I brought my children to church. I drug them to church. They were Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. If we had revival, they were there. Hey, we're going to take care of that. We're going to make sure that they pay attention during worship service. We're going to make sure that if they're in the youth group, they're going to listen to the youth pastor and they're going to pay attention. But then we didn't do that at home. We didn't read the Bible. We didn't really study the Bible. We really didn't get into God's Word. We just kind of did godly things and churchy things, but we never really got into the meat of what we're supposed to. And I think that's one of the things that all of us as parents probably have failed to do with our children. I know you're working real hard with Harmony. That should have been a lifelong thing, and I can't say it was a lifelong thing for me. We did a good job for a number of years, but then we let life get busy and get in the way and put that aside. Now we're still going to church. We're still faithful, doing all those things. Our children made professions of faith. I pray that they were all sincere professions of faith, and only the Lord knows that. But we never really spent time as they got older in the Word. And I think that's probably the biggest error as a parent that I committed, I guess.
Yep. And it's one of those things you'll never know. Hindsight 20/20, as they say. But and you know, if we keep doing this long enough, maybe I'll get to tell you how it goes. But I'm hoping it engenders something different in her. Again, from that idea of that, yes, daily reading, daily study, talking about it, discussing the topics of it. And even if I can't, now one of the other things I've started trying to do more often is if I'm, instead of putting my Bible podcast in my headphones and listening to it, I'll broadcast it out loud so that everybody who's around me gets to hear it. So Harmony hears me listening to these. Yeah. And she, at first I thought she was just ignoring it because she'd be playing her tablet or doing her homework or something like that. But then I start hearing her mention things that she's heard. Yep. And I'm like, okay, so it's getting through.
Oh, they multitask very well.
Yeah, they do.
And if your kids are still at home, I mean, teenagers, older children, you know, it's not too late to start that.
Nope.
And it can always be a simple conversation. I know, Jed, you do this from time to time with your girls, I think, is, hey, what'd you talk about tonight in youth? What'd you talk about in Sunday school? Like, that's great because, A, that makes them want to pay attention. B, if it's something you question about, then you can come to me and be like, hey, this is what the girl said. Talk to me real quick, you know? And
and I guarantee you'll learn stuff from your kids too. We know that, you know, they'll see a verse in a different way than you see it, or ask you a question about one. And you're like, you know what? I don't know the answer to that. Let's figure it out.
Let's dive in and do a little study here.
Yeah. You know, when we read Harmony's Bible, she's got her little, you know, kids' Bible, and it's got totally different little side notes in it than mine does.
Does it have the pictures and everything?
It's got some little ones, not big pictures.
That's Ray's Bible.
That's right. That's Ray's Bible.
She actually did get the Action Bible for gosh, what was that? It wasn't for Christmas. She got it a little while ago as a gift, but
that wasn't the one at baptism, was it?
No, that was different. We bought it for her, but it's like the Bible done in a comic book style, you know. It skips a lot, but still, she read that. She reads that on her own.
It's like, geared towards that age to where they can comprehend it.
Yeah. So she, you know, she's got 3 Bibles now, and I see her read 2 of them, you know, actively, you know. So it's really cool to see. Really good. Well,
I think we'll continue on with this.
Yeah, it's probably
Mike. You'll be back, right?
Be back next week or next time?
Next time.
I'll be more than happy if you want me back.
Because I want to ask you this, and I'm going to have you think on this a little bit, because now we say that, you know, we need to do more for our kids and read the Bible at home, and, you know, they go to church and they go Wednesday night and they do this and they go to summer camps. You know, I've seen sometimes that it's too much that pushes them away because, you know, you hear the excuses of the kids where, you know, my dad made me do this and made me go to church and made me read the Bible and made me do that. And now you see them as adults and they're like, I don't want anything to do with church anymore because my parents force it on me so much that I don't want anything to do with it. My question to you is, you know, where is that fine line that you're not pushing too much that's going to push them away from God, but it's enough where you're building a great foundation for them as they get older? So I kind of want you to think about that, Mike. You know, I think that's what the first question I'd like to start with on the next podcast.
Sure.
And where we can decide where we find that fine line.
And I'll ponder that answer because I know that anybody who's got a child that's fixed and leave the home have all said that. That's most of my children have used that same line.
Right.
That, you know, so I've heard this before. It's not like it wasn't a new concept that was invented.
No.
And so,
I mean, you probably got the answer like this, but
well, I don't. I kind of and. Hopefully, and I shared with you, I actually sent messages to all of my adult children to ask for them to send me honest feedback about what I was as a parent, positive and negative, as I'm growing up, and as as they've grown up as an adult. So just before I came, I texted them again saying, looking for that stuff. So maybe they can give me some insight that I can share next week.
And I got a list of questions here that I'm going to send over to you too, and kind of, just so you can have something to go off of that. I think we're going to have some questions, and
if it's too tough, I'm not coming back.
That's fine. That's fine.
You can call a pass on that. Right. Yeah, and if anybody listening, if you got questions you want us to cover in this, comment, again, shoot an email, DM Spiritual Debriefing on Instagram or Facebook. And if you've got a different thought on any of this, we'd love to see some comments.
That'd be awesome.
We'd love to just kind of get some feedback, or if you want to, try to answer that question, I'll keep an eye out for anybody throwing any answers in. We can maybe even read a few of those. And if you want to be anonymous, just let me know. I won't read names if you don't want me to. But I think it can be. This is a topic that there's no exact answers for any of this.
Right.
That's why there's a million books about it, from all different walks, Christian and non-Christian, and one book might work great for one kid and one might not work for another, and it's something that there's no real instruction manual for except for the Bible, and that gives you some good guidance, but it doesn't give you those day-to-day little tiny answers all the time. So,
well, tune back for part 2. Mike, do you mind closing us in prayer?
Lord Heavenly Father, we just thank you for that we're able to come together and to discuss a topic that is a challenge for all of us as parents, that we certainly don't know the answers, other than that we know that the answers are found in your word. That is our responsibility as parents to stay in the word, to learn and to grow in the word, and be able to share it with our children. We're going to experience some challenges as we go through life, Lord, and we're not always going to have the answers. We know that we can get guidance from you. And we just pray that you give us the insight, and the Holy Spirit just impress upon us the decisions that we make that'll glorify you, and to reach our children in a way that you will want them to grow, and the way we want them to stay close to you as they go on to their adult life. Just again, thank you for these gentlemen that come each week to just share their hearts about spiritual matters, and we just praise you for that, and we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for listening to Spiritual Debriefing, a podcast supported by First Baptist Church Hiwassee. Please like and subscribe to the podcast so you can be notified when we post new episodes, as well as check out our past episodes. We'll be posting new podcasts every other Thursday. You can follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you have questions you'd like us to answer, comments, or feedback on the podcast, please contact us through our social media or email us at dmeadows@fbchiwassee.com. Thank you, and we hope God blesses your day.